Right, welcome to Mindset Monday. So, as you may have been aware, I had an audio that I was going to um, have going this morning, but I ran into some silly, ridiculous issues with it, and I couldn't solve it as quickly as what I'd like to. But
sold a dream, an image, a reality that doesn't actually exist yet. How-tos, there's two cams, and none of these things work. But what not even be aware that exists, but it exists. The ability long after we, it's not to play the G chord. The G chord is part of the journey, it's part of the process.
Actually, it's a really, really, really good listen. Even I thought it was a great listen. But that's coming. But what I wanted to do was I just wanted to come on and really talk about mindset, the mindset of how to be a more successful player, and whatever that means to you. And I am going to play some stuff. I think that was the goal. But I really want to talk about this stuff because it's stuff that's so overlooked by people who are learning. This, you see ads everywhere about, if you've ever looked on Facebook at, say, like a guitar page or a guitar ad that's been run in front of you, and you start watching those ads and you start seeing more of them, right? So you're flooded with all this information that keeps coming in all the time. So not only through your news feed, but it's also, in other forms of social media. And it's also the thing that you're actively pursuing when you're trying to learn. So you'll be on YouTube, you'll buy courses and everything else. So there's this what amounts to probably information overload. So how's this really affect your mindset? And it's really like this. I think that because of all these things flooding your mind all the time, that your subconscious and your conscious mind, that all these things keep coming at you, that you actually lose perspective on what's really real in regards to achieve greater results in being a better musician. Because the reality is what you're doing is not just playing guitar, you're playing music on a guitar. Guitar is your instrument of choice. It's the vehicle or the mechanism that you use to express yourself through music. Okay, it could have been piano, you could also play piano. I play piano terribly. So I, being those of you who don't know, I have an audio engineering background as well, so I can record things and cut and paste it all together essentially. So it sounds great, on a track, but I couldn't play it real time. I can play little bits. Anyway, what was I saying? So, when it comes to mindset around learning, there seems to be a disconnect, and I've noticed this over the years. There's a disconnect in how people perceive learning, and it's it's no fault of your own, really. I mean, it's a byproduct of being sucked into how things are today, and how we live. So I get it. I get that we've been. It's kind of like a thing where you're running uphill to begin with, and like I said, I've seen this. I've noticed this over the years, especially when I was teaching. Right, so there's this bridge and a gap between being so hungry for something and to achieve something that we start to overconsume information to try and what we would think would be to try and resolve the problem that we're trying to solve, whatever that could be. I don't know what you have in your mind. I don't know what it is you think about playing music or about playing a guitar or whatever it is. Everybody's got some idea in their mind of what it is that they have always wanted to achieve. I remember me as when I was a young boy, I was about 17, whatever, that all I wanted to do was just to create music. That's all I ever wanted to do. And that led toward wanting to improvise music. So what I needed, and I think I had this instinctually, was I had the innate ability to be dedicated enough to the craft to sit down for hours to pursue it. So this is what I'm talking about with mindset. And how does that relate to everything else I've said? Well, over the years, what I noticed when I was teaching, that students who came in, especially the younger ones, just didn't and don't have the required, and obviously this is not every student, so if you're a former student, this may or may not apply to you, but it's not for everybody. But most people, the high 90 percentile, didn't have what it takes to sit and be dedicated enough to work through things to achieve the things that they wanted to achieve. So they would come in on a weekly basis still kind of really stuck within this kind of zone. It's kind of like, they've got sticky pudding feet, black tar under their feet, and they get so far and they're kind of, it's hard and they stick, and it's just, they're just crawling through this boggy marsh almost of black tar, and never really setting foot on solid ground because they didn't have that foundational aspect to their playing, to their character or their lifestyle to do it. So to give you an idea, I would sit down for just hours and hours non-stop, hours and hours. I would do 12-hour days practicing guitar. Now, what I can tell you is that I spent most of that time being very focused and having a very deliberate intent and purpose for doing things. I wasn't in the earlier part anyway, wasn't certainly as structured as what I needed to be, but I definitely would sit there for that long, and I would study and I would work through things. So it was always, I'd have the metronome going, and I'm trying to work out how to play this E flat major scale. Maybe I remember trying to practice this scale in different positions, and it just completely throwing me off. And I'm thinking to myself, how is this even possible? It's the same damn thing, but moved to a different location. It's the same physical movement, same set of strings, but what throws it off is that when the tones change, right, the pitch changes. That's what throws the ear off. So I couldn't sit there, although intellectually I knew that if I'm doing this, right, intellectually, at a fundamental level, I should be able to move it down one fret and do the same thing. Right? I knew at a fundamental level that that's what I should be able to do, but I couldn't do it. For the life of me, I couldn't do it. Maybe you experience that as well. If you do, let me know. That it could be anything. Like I said, I'm not just applying a scale in this instance, but I knew, I looked at it, I could kind of get it together in this one place, but as soon as I tried to move it somewhere else, it just fell apart. I just could not get it. And though my brain, intellectually, like I said, knew that it's exactly the same physical movement, the same fret distance, the same fingers, the same string set, and I still couldn't get it. But I persevered and I overcame that eventually. Now, had I not had the mindset to sit there for hours and hours and hours on end doing this stuff, I wouldn't have got there. But that was in a different era too, because like I said, you didn't have computers like you have today anywhere near, of course, or the internet, or we didn't even, when I first started playing, there wasn't even CDs, so it was, your route of learning was either via friends, books and magazines that would come in, or if you could order a VHS, which was a giant cassette tape for you guys who don't know what a VHS is. I don't say that to be facetious, I just know some of you don't. I had one time, I was actually working at Fonterra, so this would have been like, oh God, so Mace would be 18, so it'd be like 22 years ago, 22 years ago or something. And I went to this party one weekend, and I don't remember the name of the lady, but anyway, she was talking about the kids, her younger kids grabbing the LP and was referring to them as, how do we put these, why are these black CDs so big? And we were just all, cracking up laughing because, the LPs are, vinyls. But it's interesting, the technology has changed so much. And when I was growing up, there was limited resources. So you had to, like I said, it's either via friends, via books, which really, to be fair, were just worthless because I had no idea what it meant, and you really needed somebody to help unpack it. And, so you had to persevere to get stuff done. And that stayed with me throughout my whole entire life. If I want to learn, a particular thing, then I can sit there and do that. But, as I was saying earlier at the beginning, that, the younger students that used to come in the door just struggled. They would struggle with attention spans. It's not the thing that you can really goof off and not be. You've got to be present. I think is probably the best thing, because if you are trying to get the stuff down, no matter what it is, you have to have that perseverance to sit there and work through it, no matter what it takes. And that's the art of the dedication of doing stuff. I was mentioning earlier on when I was playing the scale, right, and I couldn't play it in different positions. What eventually happened is that, my ears got accustomed to hearing the sound of the scale in different positions or playing different keys, right? I would just move it in different keys. And play it with different feels, that little bit of swing. And that led me to get used to sort of exploring the instrument a little bit more. And then I would connect things, I learnt one major shape, for example. This is a major scale, it's called an E-flat major scale. But then I learnt it here in this position, but starting on what we call a relative minor, and I learnt this position as well. And that got me through for quite a long time, just playing sort of this scalar position and this one here. So I would have these two different locations where I measure a minor scale. Anyway, so getting back to more around the mindset stuff, and so here's another struggle that I see, and I'll be brief with this because I want to keep these ones a little bit shorter so that they can be more digestible. That for adult students, the struggle has always been, I work. Excuse me. I work and I struggle to find the time. And I would always ask the question, do you watch TV? You know, who am I to judge what you do or don't do? But what I would always try and lead somebody toward is a fundamental truth they weren't seeing. And that was that they place things above their learning that for the most part wasn't necessary in their life, or they didn't see where they needed to make a sacrifice needed to be able to play. And so for the adults, it was always, I would say, well, look, you know, can you do it first thing in the morning before you go to work? Can you take your guitar to work and do it at lunchtime? I used to take my guitar to work. I used to take it to work, and even if I only could get 10 minutes in, or 5 minutes in a break, or 30 minutes in a break, I would do that because that was the time I had available. So without thinking too hard about it, it wasn't that it was an intentional, like a master plan that I mapped out every week, and Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, it's this and this and this, and Thursdays it's PGOs at work. During my lunch break, it was never anything like that. It was just I had, I guess, an innate work ethic to do it, because I had already built up that self-awareness and, I guess, internal culture, my own culture, I guess, of being able to do it, because what I had to do was no one else around me to do it for me, so I would utilize all those free times that I had, and then after work, after I'd eaten, it was the first thing I would do. I would quickly get my food down so that I could go and play. So I would, I got to the point, where I was recording my music at night, and then the next day, I would bounce it down at the end of the night. So what that means is I would record on a 4-track, it was a Tascam 4-track recorder. You may have heard me say this before, but I've still got it. It's packed away here in storage for the time being. And I used to record all my music on it and get it to a point where, actually what I loved about the 4-track is that it was really basic mixing. So you just had sort of panning and actually I don't even think there's any, oh yeah, that's right, panning and just some very basic EQ, equalization. That's it. So I would record and mix my music at night, and then I'd bounce it down, meaning I would export it out into a cassette tape that I could play in the car on the way to work. So then the next day I would get up for work. I would get up excited just because all I wanted to do was listen to my music, to see what it sounded like, because I always wanted to hear what it sounded like like it was like it was on the radio. And this was already after I'd had some stuff that had airplay when I was about 22. When I was in Perth, and we were on the radio there for a bit. And so I would get up in the morning and this is when I used to smoke cigarettes. Ugh. Thank God I didn't do that for very long. Anyway, and I would just have a coffee and a cigarette, and I'd get in the car. I wouldn't even eat. Terrible. Anyway, and I would get in the Valiant. It was actually my partner's car, I think at the time. That one was before I got the V6 Holden that I had, wagon. Anyway, and I would just drive to work and I would chuck the tape in and I would listen to the music. And, that was some of the, I was just telling somebody about this the other day. That's some of the greatest memories I have in my life. There's something so exciting about listening to something you've written, recorded, and to play it back. And then I remember, this just comes to memory now. I remember my friend Carla had a place in, I forget where it was, the top end of Harbour there, somewhere, I forget the name of the street. You come in to Harbour, you go left, and I think it's the first left and then left. I think she was down that way somewhere down that way anyway. And she's flatting with, I think she was flatting with another friend of mine, Mikey, and also Denise. Anyway, and I remember I took my music over there. They used to love hearing music, and I remember putting it in the stereo, the home stereo, and just hearing this. Da, 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 da. I remember this in my head now, remembering a piece I composed. And I have these songs all on tape somewhere. It's one of those things where you're like going, it's going to take a long time to go through all that. Like all my thousands and thousands of digital recordings, And I remember being so excited to hear it coming back out of the speakers out at me. And it was something that I knew I sucked. It wasn't that, it was the perfection that was, or the lack of perfection that was sort of glaring at me. It was the fact that I had did that thing the night before, and the next day, I would, or was at my friend's house, and I could put it in the stereo and I could listen back to it, and it's just such an unreal feeling to hear your music being played back to you, even though it was sloppy, out of time, in pieces, and I couldn't put parts together because I still didn't understand harmony that well, or I still didn't understand keys as well, or whatever. But I had the mindset, to do it. I was practicing when I could get to practice, and I could record when I could get to record. And I sacrificed things, just the same as when I was younger, when I said I was practicing about 6 hours, at least minimum, about 3 or 6 hours. I don't think I ever recall playing 3. It must have been always more than 3. But up to 12-hour days. And I sacrificed spending time with my friends to do it. That's how driven I was, and that's how. It's a very selfish pursuit. I think if you're doing it right, it's a very selfish pursuit. Yeah. Mum always had to come in and say to me, tea's ready. Turn that shit down. I used to get that. I told Mum that years later, and she said, no, I didn't. I said, yes, you did. I said, it's okay, it was terrible. Another time, I think she realised, and she said, you were so terrible. But I would still encourage you, and I said, yeah. And many of us are probably, many of you that are watching that are at that phase now. You play and just everything you do is terrible. Well, the turnaround, the solution to all this is having, a healthy mindset around learning. You have to be determined that you can do it. It's not easy. It is not. Look, it's not easy. I don't care what anyone's told you. It's not easy. I don't care what you think that it's easy. Oh, I picked it up in 2 weeks. Yeah, but I could roll off 1,000 things you can't do that you've just picked up in 2 weeks. That you couldn't do in 2 weeks. You couldn't do now. It's hard. It's actually very hard. I said this the other day, you've got the left hand and the right hand to worry about. You've got the things that you need to think about and process while you're playing as well, But, eventually it becomes to a point where it becomes more effortless to do things, especially if you work on, if you're breaking up your learning into the theoretical, the technical, right, the things that create agility and all these kinds of things. If you got those things down, it's going to radically evolve your playing very, very quickly. It's an important aspect of playing, is making sure you target all those areas. It's just like for those of you who have been to a gym, or you do any other sports that you've done in your life, or any other discipline, anything that requires some kind of discipline, martial arts, anything at all. Even at your job, it's probably likely that it requires a lot of dedication to some of the things that you do. And it's one of those things where you have to apply yourself to these various different aspects of this discipline. If it's martial arts, maybe you're weak on your turning around back kicks going the opposite way, So that becomes something you have to invest yourself in. You have to, seriously go, right, this time I am going to work on that. This week I am working on that. Every day before I get to, or every day before I get to class, I'm going to arrive even 15 minutes earlier than ever before class begins, before warm-ups begin, and I'm going to work on those turning around spinning back kicks. I'm going to do that at least twice a week. That's the kind of mentality needed to do it, is to sit there and do it until you can do it. Students would say, and I'm gonna wrap up with this, but students would say to me, how long is it going to take to do the thing that I was doing? And I would say to them, as long as it takes. That is my answer to you. I would sit there and I would do it for as long as it takes. If I couldn't do it that day, I would find all the time available the next day to practice and keep doing it. Day after day after day after day after day, sacrifice after sacrifice, until I could do it. Eventually I could do it. Eventually I could do way more than I ever dreamed of. And it's still very much that way, but yet I'm still learning. I'm still trying to build up strength and dexterity in my hands, and from not being able to play really for quite a long time. But yeah, so that's what's needed. It's you do whatever's necessary to do it. Put yourself in a distraction-free zone. Tell everybody in your home that you're practicing. I used to put a sign up on my door. I used to let everybody know I was practicing. I put a sign up on my door. I'm practicing. Go away and leave me alone. Whatever's needed for you to move the meter is the thing that you've just got to do. Otherwise, you're just not dedicated and you're just flanking around. And that's okay if that's your thing too. There's no judgment here about that if that's your thing. But you can't complain that you've had a guitar for 20 years sitting in the corner of your lounge, and all you say every year is you procrastinate. Well, this year I'm going to get the guitar out here, I'm going to get lessons, and this year I'm going to go and do lessons, or I really want to be a little bit better than what I have been. Just make a decision and do it. That's it. If you need to stop watching TV so that you can fit in an extra hour guitar practice, do it. Or don't. Doesn't affect me. But that's really what it is. It's what's more important. The thing that brings me some sense of great joy, relief, satisfaction, or something that's just turned into a ritual that's actually pulling me away from what I actually really enjoy doing. I get that as I mentioned earlier on, that as an adult, those of you who are adults and you have your work commitments, you might even have kid commitments, and you've got commitments everywhere. Everything's flying at you all the time. People are trying to steal your time. They're calling you, they're texting you, they're emailing you. People are turning up at your doorstep. You have to be in a position where you make a decision. I want to do whatever it is that the goal is, and actually start moving towards a goal. Take a step, have that healthy mindset, right? It means that there has to be a sacrifice somewhere. If you're not making that progress, it just means you need to make a sacrifice. That's it. Find out what you're prepared to sacrifice in order to fulfill the thing that's in your heart or your mind or your spirit or whatever it is you want to call it, or just because you want to. Because nobody's going to do it for you. And I promise you, year after year after year after year after year, if you're telling yourself this, you're going to regret it. The amount of people that I had taught over the years, especially adults, I had a guitar sitting in my lounge, in the corner of my lounge for 15 years, 20 years, they come up to lessons. And they would have literally have cobwebs in the guitars, And I'll go, and I know the answer to this. Well, I don't know the exact answer, but I know that they need changing strings. But I would say, when was the last time you changed your strings? Oh, they've never been changed. Do they need to get changed? Right, all things like that, because people don't know, so I'm not judging, but I would crack out because it's funny to me, I was like, oh shit, you had a guitar in the corner for 20 years and you never changed the strings. That's fascinating to me, and it's quite funny. But really, again, it boils down to the mindset. The overarching mindset is, what am I prepared to sacrifice in order to have this thing that I want? Because everybody who's ever had anything that they want has to, who's got good at anything, has had to make a sacrifice. Your Olympic athletes, right? They didn't start when they're in their 30s. They start when they're little kids. Whether it's going to swimming lessons when they're 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, 7 years old, and they did it all through their life, Tennis players, race car drivers, artists, gymnasts, people who are involved in the circus, whatever that discipline is. Like I said, it could be even at your job, right? Maybe you had to go and do training to develop your career, to develop your role within the business or company that you're in. Maybe you had to do a barista course. Maybe you had to learn how to stock shelves. Whatever it is, you had to have had some kind of discipline in order to be able to do that, right? So having the right healthy mindset to be better at music means a couple of things. One is that you don't know everything. And where you are at now can always be improved. Because if you think, I'm okay at guitar, believe it or not, I still think I'm a beginner. I've told everybody that for 30 something years. No matter what's gone on. Teaching at summits with Joe Satriani, Slash, Alex Skolnick, amazing players. Being involved with projects that involve multi-platinum producers, right? You've got to make a decision. What am I prepared to sacrifice in order to have enough of a concentrated amount of time where I can be focused enough to get closer to my dream, to get closer to my goal of doing whatever it is that you want to do musically on the guitar. Because the goal is music on the guitar. It's not the guitar. I know you think it's the guitar, but it's music on the guitar. Your goal is to play music. Your goal isn't to play the guitar. The guitar is the vehicle, the mechanism, the means of expression of the music that's in you. Does that resonate with you? I really hope that does. It's so good I don't even know if I can repeat that. Right? Your goal is not playing guitar. Your goal is playing music on the guitar. I used to say to students all the time, would be like, I struggle. I go, okay, so here's what you need to do now. You're going to play, I'd show them the solo chord. So you're looking, this is a E dominant 9 chord, E9 for short. Not to be confused with the E-Add9, completely different sounds. Anyway, and I would say, hey, I would say your goal now here is to create music with this one chord. I'd say, here's the chord, show them the chord. They were capable of playing whatever chord I showed them. And I would be met with a resistant blank stare. The lights were on and nobody was home quite often. And they would look at me and they would go, I don't know what to do. I said, create music. But I don't know how to do that. So which raises a really interesting question. You know, and it could go down to things like, what is the definition of music, all this stuff. And that, they'd already been playing for a bit. So it's not like this is a brand new person who's just picked up a guitar and I'm saying, hey, play music. No, they were already playing songs. They were already doing things. They were already studying. But I was showing them a flaw in their mindset around music and playing it on the instrument. And I too had the struggle, right, of going, well, this E dominant 9 chord is the 5 chord of A major, right? So I would think that I had to play, you know, this A major scale over my chord, which, I mean, of course, it's a Mixolydian mode, but for those of you who know your scales, but doesn't mean it's the right sound to go over these chords, right? I'm more interested in how do I create music. Things where anyway, I've gone off track just a little bit there, but anyway, so what I would say is we should create music with this chord, and they would literally 95% of students would stop. I don't know, I don't have a bloody clue on what to do, but they wouldn't say bloody, so I apologise for that. But yeah, they would say, I don't know what to do. You know? How I go, well, okay, well, you know, think of rhythm and think of dynamics, because you know that's what we do in music. We use rhythm, we use dynamic, you know, which is the volume of things. And they'd look at me really, really strange. So I'd have to always demonstrate. I go, look, you know, I just get the chord and I go, maybe you want to just move it around. Maybe you're moving it one down a fret at a time, so you can, yeah, so you can hear what it sounds like in these different positions. And okay, just move around to start finding some music by, you know, playing up the rhythm. Maybe going right. So that F isn't in this key, this F9 isn't in this key, but it sounds musical, right? It sounds musical. And that's the goal, we're playing music on the instrument. So, I don't know, finding ideas, and it would always lead to finding like a musical idea like an Ian, and all of a sudden I would try and develop that into something else, something more something more organized and structured. Yeah, that's the right word. So anyway, these Mindset Monday things I'm going to do a lot on Mondays. They're really important. I think people underestimate the significance, the importance of having some kind of ability to be focused enough. And that's really what mindset boils down to. It's having the focus and the dedication, or the focus and the perseverance to see something through. Going, well, this is the thing that I want to do. Right? And it's also stripping away the things that are not necessary in order to advance. So if you're, if your goal is to play stuff like this, whatever, then it doesn't make sense that you're going to sit down for hours and hours and hours playing non-stop scales. If your goal is just to be a great rhythm player, then why would you sit down and start with the scales? There's no logic to that whatsoever. However, actually, if you are a lead player, or you want to be a better lead player, then you should learn you should become a great rhythm player first. Look, the reality is that we play most of our, like if you're, unless you're in an instrumental band where you're the soloist, where all the focus is around your abilities as a soloist, then you're going to spend all your time playing rhythm. So you will have to go. If that's your job, or maybe it's the other thing that shows you. So anyway, in summary, what you really need to do moving forward is start to think about, maybe you need to reevaluate your position. For many of you, that's likely the case, right? Because I don't know whether you're at work. I don't know whether you work a full-time job. I don't know what your hours are. I don't know whether you're a young single person, or you've got a family, or that you're a solo parent, or that you're in a marriage with several children, or I don't know what your circumstances are. But I can tell you this. That after teaching thousands upon thousands of lessons, and more people than you can shake a stick at, what I can tell you is this: the things that really will determine your ability to grow and develop is to firstly know what the hell you're doing it for. It's just, the amount of times you hear people say, I want to learn guitar. Always want to learn the guitar. Cool. Why? Oh, never thought about that. Or you get, somebody's thought through a little bit. Wow, look, I've always wanted to play in church. Or I've always wanted to, me and my mates always thought that we could get a band together. That's much better than not having a goal. But then, if that is your goal, then you have to look at that and refine that even further and go, what is the purpose and intent of being within that environment? What happens if it goes away? Like if you're in a band, for example, what happens if your bass player moves away and you live in a small town and you can't find another bass player? Or you have a brother and sister who play keyboards and drums or whatever, and they both move away, or more logical reason, the bands just break up, because bands break up a lot more than you think. And not that it's always just this internal friction thing of just internal dynamics, into dynamics of the relationships are just not great. If you're a Friends fan, you'll know. If you know, you know. But what I can tell you, and again, I'm just going to wrap up with this thought and this idea to pass on to you. Start thinking about what you want to what you want your life to look like as a player. What does it look like? What do you want your life to look like? I'm not saying necessarily that you have to think, oh, I'm going to think, excuse me, oh, well, I'm going to have a, Beverly Hills mansion, and I'm going to have, 10 rooms in it, and Doodle palm trees. I'm going to have a McLaren 575. I'm going to have a Ferrari Pista. I'm going to have I actually like the GTR S2s, actually. I'm going to have one of those. It's not that, it's reevaluating the purpose and intent of why you want to do this. Think about it a little bit more. And then set up a lifestyle that you're happy with, that enables you to continually evolve your craft. Interject it into your lifestyle. Push something out that's not as important so that you can fulfill your dreams and your desires to do it. Because another day's just gone past. I know you didn't need me to tell you that, but I just did. Another day's just gone by. The day before that's gone. Did you do it that day? Did you do it the day before that? So what I'm saying is tomorrow can be an opportunity, or even now, tonight, right now. I mean, I'm in New Zealand. It's 9:21 p.m. It's on the 31st of January 2022. There's still 2 hours and 39 minutes left in this day to do something that you really want to start doing, that you can make progress towards. Maybe you need to map it out or something. Look, I'm open to having this discussion underneath. If you guys, if any of this resonates with you, if you've found value in it, if you've got questions about it, or if you actually want to put me straight, go, actually that's not true, then say it. Don't sit back and watch this stuff and not get involved, because how many it's not often that you get to sit in front of people who are way further along than you, assuming I am, and get their professional input. Because I worked hard for where I am as a player, and granted I could be so much better had life not thrown so many curveballs. But anyway, make a plan for yourself. What does it look like? What do you really want to be doing? Just start pondering on it. Don't come to some big answer. Just start pondering on it. Just let it simmer away in your mind, and then something will come to the top. Maybe it's the thing where I need to buy a new guitar. I need to actually save money for a new guitar, or I need to go and buy a new guitar, or I need a new amp. I need to change my strings. All of those things will define and determine the success of your musical reality moving forward. They do. They just do. Anyway, it's been great sitting around talking to nobody, because I actually quite enjoy doing these anyways. It's quite therapeutic for me. But if you've got any questions, again, just leave them below. And if you're looking for lessons, I had been keeping this quiet on a down low, but I am doing just a few private lessons, and when I mean a few, they are only a few. So if you end up booking in for any of my temporary permanent slots, I don't know which, weekly slots, that's the one. If you ever book into my weekly slots, they are more limited than you probably realise. But I also am doing custom practice plans, of course. If those of you have been taking lessons, you already know this. But custom plans are available, and then there's plans available too where you'll get custom practice tracks to go along with. And if you know me, I don't do anything by halves. So they're really great things that you just play along, and then you'll be then I drop out of the track, and then you'll just hear the backing track, and then you'll be playing along with the backing track and all the metronome or whatever. Then I come back in. All these kinds of really, really cool things to help you excel your growth from where you currently are. So those are available if you want that. Just reach out, let me know, and we'll see what we can do. Okay, take care. Have a great evening. I'll see you tomorrow morning for tomorrow morning session, which is on, I don't know. But tomorrow night, I think I will do, well, I don't know. I guess you're going to have to wait and see. Take care. Bye.